Hello, I'm Britton Shirley, and I'm Dean of Humanities, Fine Arts, Business, and Social Science here at WKCTC. And I'm excited to have a panel discussion today to talk about land access and land inequality with two fantastic speakers as part of our one book read initiative for this year, which is Tales of Two Americas. I'll start by just reading some bios for both of our panelists here, and then we'll jump right into the discussions. Gerry Seavo James is the Together Outdoors lead at the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, where he leads a cross-sector coalition of over 100 organizations, individuals, businesses, leaders, federal agencies, activists, manufacturers, and service providers who share a commitment to building an inclusive outdoor recreation community. Prior to ORR, Gerry founded Explore Kentucky, an outdoor-oriented social enterprise which works to expand outdoor accessibility, build environmental literacy, and improve the quality of life for folks in Kentucky. Through Explore Kentucky and other endeavors, Gerry has created and stewarded several outdoor events and guided programs, led development for the Beaver Creek Blueway Trail, created the Waterman Series, which is a paddle sports racing league, and served as a founding steering committee member for the Kentucky Rural Urban Exchange. Gerry attended Campbellsville University. He is also an Air Force veteran, social artist, photojournalist, and past outdoor Afro leader. Since 2010, Gerry has adopted the Commonwealth of Kentucky as his home. David Nickell, many of you on our campus might recognize. He is our professor of sociology and philosophy here at WKCTC. But he also serves as the faculty advisor for Concept Zero, which is our student environmental and outdoor club. He is also the president of Between the Rivers Incorporated, for former residents of the Land Between the Lakes area, and he is the council chair of Heartwood, a regional environmental organization, but he has also served on the National Parks Advisory Board. So I'm thrilled to talk with these two gentlemen today, and I want to start off by just having each of you tell us a little bit about yourselves. How did you get involved in the area of land preservation, access, exploration, and all things gloriously outdoors on this nice 70-degree day? So let's start with you, Gerry.
Where did it all begin? I think that just growing up as a military brat, we on the base, like I always had access to like outdoor recreation, like resources, like, you know, the gym, trails, parks on the base, forests and stuff like that. And unlike a lot of like American like kids, like youth, we, you know, like I couldn't just like pop over to the mall because like a base is like a city within a city. So the mall was just like a further, you know, far away. And so like a lot of like us military kids, we did what we had to do. We played outside and stuff like that. And so I just developed a passion for going outside, and we traveled all around the world. And so I just got to see different sites and stuff. And then I think also like the DoD, Department of Defense, was going through an interesting time when I was growing up of addressing environmental degradation on bases because of like, you know, from munitions or, you know, testing, different things of that sort. And so they were doing like a lot of environmental remediation. And so that really like interested me as like a kid. And so I kind of, it bubbled and percolated with me, and I worked as a recreational aide at Lake Elmer Thomas in Oklahoma. And then I just always knew that I wanted to do something around environmental science, environmental education, land preservation. And I think the big reason why is it's because it's simple, kind of. It's like, this is our home. We need to take care of it for the flora, fauna, you know, and people, you know. So that's kind of like how I got into it. Yeah.
David, how about you, sir?
I don't remember ever not being into outdoor recreation and environmental protection. I did grow up over, we called it Between the Rivers, what is now Land Between the Lakes, and just grew up, my brothers and I, just playing in the woods. We could walk to the Kentucky or Barkley Lake every day in the summer. We were just always outdoors. And then after they ran us out of there, I joined Boy Scouts, and we had a really active Boy Scout troop, and ended up getting an Eagle Scout in that. Learned a lot of just basic navigation skills, and then I spent a lot of time when I was at the University of Colorado, rock climbing and just hiking, cross country skiing in the winter times up in the national forest and the national parks. And when I came back here, they started trying to make some major changes at Land Between the Lakes, and I got involved in that and with the former residents group to try to protect Land Between the Lakes and get it to be what it was originally supposed to be, which was an outdoor recreation area. And it's 170,000 acres of just raw recreation opportunities there. And I've been, hiking, backpacking, kayaking every chance I get.
Okay, just from what I'm hearing, I think both of you really developed this love from early on in your childhood. Right. That the outdoors was kind of always there, and a place that you each kind of found connection and solace to, and that really kind of pulls into the second question I had. A lot of the main focus of the book we're talking about this year really does focus on inequality and the different ways in which different portions of populations in America have unequal access to things, or how different pockets of society in America are treated differently. And I think we've looked at that in selections from this book that deal with things like food, race, gender, social class. And that's why I really wanted to kind of talk about land, because that's talked a little bit about in the book, but I think both of you have this expertise in this area. So what are some ways in which, in your own experiences, you're throughout the years with land, where have you seen the access of land being unequitable to different portions of the populations in our country, or where are some places where you've seen very equitable uses of land or access?
So I always talk about Louisville, Kentucky, so I think it's a good example of inequity by design. So, Louisville's a river community, but in the west end of Louisville, which is where the predominantly, I would say, like Black and brown folks live in the city, there is not as much green space, and there's not much access to the Ohio River. And so there's people that grew up, in that area, and they've not grown up with the connection to the river. It's like something pretty to look at, but they haven't had a lot of like mechanisms to like access the river. In the East End, which is predominantly affluent and really, homogenous, there is, restaurants like Captain's Quarters, there's the yacht club, there is the rowing club, there's parks, and there's like multiple assets, boat ramps and stuff like that. It wasn't until like a few years ago, maybe like 2019, 2020 or so, I think. It's because I was part of it, but they opened up a boat ramp in the West End, and it's just interesting when you juxtapose that, that the amount of amenities on the east end of the river to the west end, it's interesting. The other piece is, if you look at like design, so like there's a book I always like, I'm gonna try to find it right here, Color of Law, by Richard Rothstein. So, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America. And it talks about redlining, and it also talks about how communities of color, especially, were designed. So like it was like, okay, we're gonna put that in that dump, that highway interchange, this factories in the community of color, because like they're like lower class, they're not as like people, subhuman or whatever. We're gonna keep this away from the white areas and stuff. And so this is all structural design, and And I would say the last thing is like it even like I think about like Parkins of Floyd Fork in Louisville, which is a beautiful public-private park that protects the Floyd Fork watershed. There is no, to my knowledge, no public transit that goes to this park at all, and that's interesting. So it's that structural design. So yeah.
I think he's really hitting on something here with, in terms of urban planning, that kind of thing. Public space, open places, parks is probably one of the most important features for quality of life. So like in big cities and things, the most valuable real estate is always right around the public parks. And they really are more in the more affluent parts of town, and the poor parts of town don't have those. I deal more with public lands like national forests, national parks, state parks, and a lot of those are not near cities. So if you live in the city, how do you get to them? And one of the things I see on a regular basis, people going into public lands like that is, okay, I'm here. Now, what do I do? Where do you go? I mean, what? We have too many people now growing up in the city. There's a great book recommended highly called The Last Child in the Woods, about how young people today just don't have that experience. They're not familiar with nature. They don't know what to do when they get there. And that's intimidating if you've grown up in the city and all of a sudden you're in a national forest. What do you do? I've tried to tell students when I take them out that you're a whole lot safer out here in the woods than you would be standing on a street corner in the city. And it just doesn't feel that way to them.
I think, Gerry, the point you brought up about, I like how you phrased it, the inequity by design, or the structural design of inequality. You know, and we had a panel, I think a month ago, to talk about food inequality and food deserts. And that same idea came up. Someone in town who helps run a food organization for us, Heidi Sir Heinrich, brought up and asked us to kind of think about where the grocery stores are located in town. And, you know, you mentioned the lack of transportation to get to green space. You know, like you can't walk to where the public housing is located in our town. You know, you have to ride a bus to be able to get to the grocery store if you don't have a car. And, you know, how many bags of groceries you're actually allowed on the public transportation. You know, so all those things, just about the way in which we design the environments we live in, how those can either hinder access to things, or that design could be more thoughtful and actually encourage use of public space or use of resources. So to kind of go on that kind of note, I think both of you seem concerned with increasing access to public lands and not having these structurally designed ways in which we don't get to experience the outdoors. What are some things that either you have done in your work over the years that you think in some way has kind of helped move the needle toward making public space more utilized by people in society that haven't utilized it as much? Or what's some other group that you know is doing this work that you have a huge crush on, and you're like, man, they're really rocking this public land access issue? So jump in there.
I would say guided trips, guiding people out, showing them where to go. I think that helps a lot. I know with Heartwood, we have in the past hired the Tennessee State Naturalist to actually guide groups of students and anybody that wanted to go on the trip. And that makes a big difference when you got somebody who can tell them what they're looking at, help you identify different species and birds. And I have also taken groups to logging sites in national forest and showed them what that looks like, and then take them to an old growth forest and show them that so they can see the difference. Because I think the general public, you hear people talking about these kinds of issues, but you really don't recognize what it really means, what the implications of that are. And you take them out there and show them, and it makes a difference. I've also taken groups kayaking. I have enough kayaks and everything. I was in a trailer I built that I could take students out and guide them, show them where to go. And I think that, I think that really opens the door for people that would not be willing to go out and do these things on their own, to at least get somebody to start them and show them, here's what you do when you get here.
Yeah, I totally agree with David. I think there's like a lot of buckets of how to do it. But for me, like some of the biggest things that I use is like definitely outreach, getting people out on the resource. Whenever I started Explore Kentucky, it was like an Instagram account to promote outdoor recreation around the state. Then I decided I wanted to kind of turn it into like a more of a social enterprise and things of that sort. And so I was like noticing, as I was going outside, I didn't, I wasn't seeing like, people look like me, and I kind of knew why. There was like a lot of times, and I was just talking about at an event about this, like, so like, for example, like to go out and canoe in a lot of communities of color, there's not someone that might own a canoe. And there's many reasons why. And a lot of people will cite economics, which is part of it too, but some of it's also from fear. And it's more not fear from like going on the water, but fear from, going to these spaces because, going to the forest, going to different outdoor destination spaces because of racism, because of like, the histories of Jim Crow, lynching and all these stuff like that. And so the big thing that I've been trying to do is invite people outside. So having events that are specifically targeted towards historically marginalized groups or historically like underserved groups in the outdoors. And so I've done stuff like I served as an outdoor after leader, which is a really great program. It's a national program that was started by a woman named Rue Mapp in Oakland, California. And there's chapters around the state of the country, but basically they're volunteer leaders that serve these chapters, and they take people out on trips 2 times a month. And it's really great. And there's like several people that I've known that have gone through the program, served as leaders, and they've done hundreds of trips. And so I think Outdoor Afro is a good model to like look at and follow. I also think there's another org up in Cincinnati called Adventure Crew, and their goal is founded by a guy, Brewster, who founded the Ohio Paddle Fest. But the goal of like this Adventure Crew is it's like an outdoor adventure club for high schoolers. So they take high schoolers out on trips like skiing, snowboarding, all that stuff. And what's cool is it's in the schools, which is really interesting. So, and there's a lot of groups like that. HBCUs outside, Ron Griswold, a lot of HBCUs, historically black universities, don't have outdoor recreation departments like a lot of like PWI do. And so he's created this program to help HBCUs get like outdoor like rec programs and stuff. So there's a lot of like, I think that outreach and taking people out on the resource is key. And that's something that I've really worked on. And I would say the other big thing is knowledge. And so using like new media platforms, I studied comms in college. And so I think like meeting people where they are at, a lot of times like outdoor recreation traditionally, I don't know, like it was like Outside Magazine or it wasn't marketed to everybody, but by making it fun and putting it on platforms like Instagram and like TikTok and stuff like that, it reaches a different audience. And I know there's like pushback on that too, because people are like, oh, social media and da-da-da. But I think it's, yeah, so stuff like that.
Nice. It's good to hear all the different organizations that are out there that are doing good work. And I think that kind of leads into really my final planned question, and I'll throw some curveballs at y'all. What are some things that people can do? I think both of you in your own ways have mentioned, like, if someone's not that hasn't been in the outdoors that much, there's a feeling of nervousness, discomfort, the unknown, the fear for a litany of different reasons. For anyone in our audience that's listening that you've convinced? You're like, all right, yeah, I want to get out in the world. What are some things they can do to kind of maybe take that first step to, if they are apprehensive? Where are some places they could go? What are some groups they could talk to? What's the initial step you would recommend, or resources?
One of the first things I think is do some research. Find out about the place you're going to go. Try to have maps. Not only tell you how to get there, but where to go when you get there. Most of those kind of maps for public lands and things have trails marked on them. I was going to the newest national park a while back, which is New River National Park, and I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos about people on the trails, reviewing the trails. They were YouTube videos people made on the various trails on that river, which is a pretty wild whitewater kind of river. There's lots of rock climbing there. There are also some free apps you can download on your cell phone or on a tablet. There's one called Go Paddling, which is free, and it works off satellite, and you turn on your location and it will tell you where every paddling put in place is anywhere near you, and tell you how to get to it, give you reviews of the stream. There's another one called All Trails, which will do the same thing for hiking trails. It will show you where every trailhead is within, you set the diameter, the radius away from you, but within like 10 or 20 miles, it'll show you where every trail is. And that one's free. For the paid version, you can actually download the trail maps, and then you can use GPS and it'll show you on your phone where you are on the trail. There's also free apps for identifying tree species, bird species, insects that you can have right there on your phone. So when you're out there on the trail and you see something, you can pull it up and figure out what is that.
Awesome. Gerry,
Yeah, those are great. Those are great things. Yeah, I always tell people to get prepared for sure. So I love those. I think that pace yourself. I think that a lot of times when people think of outdoor recreation, the way it's marketed, they're thinking of like some Subaru commercial with the, Subaru Outback or something, like crashing through some mud, mountain bikes in the back, and then the person stops the car, there's a cliff, and then they just jump out of it and wingsuit down, and eat it and stuff, and then they get out the wingsuit and then they end up on a surfboard or whatever. So it's just like it's just marketed like hardcore and extreme, and I think like getting outside is it's different for people. So like there's hammocking, there is day hikes, there's all kinds of stuff, and so like just find like what works for you and start small, so if you're someone, you see these awesome vistas in the river gorge and you're like, man, I'm not ready for like a 5 mile, you might try out and look for like the half mile and find this a scenic view, but just don't allow what the pre-existing notions of the outdoors or what you should do cloud your vision. Find your own thing.
Man, that's great advice on both fronts. One things I want to kind of return to a little bit is, as y'all are talking, it occurred to me that like I probably have a little bit more knowledge over what you both have been involved in over the past few years, and you both mentioned things like Heartwood or Explore Kentucky, and I want to give you all a chance to let our audience know like the work you've been doing a little bit more deeply, aside from the quick bio that I read. So David, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit more about what, I guess, two fronts. Tell us a little bit what Heartwood is and what their mission is, and how people can get involved if they want to, and then also give folks, we won't do justice here, but a crash course in Between the Rivers, and what work you're doing there. I know there's a lot of history.
Yeah. Well, Heartwood is, first of all, it's not actually an organization or a group. Heartwood is a network of organizations. So there's lots of little grassroots groups. Our motto is people helping people protect the places they love. So for some environmental issue going on and a local group is trying to organize, we can connect them with groups from all over who have been doing those things, know how to do it, know what the laws are, know how to organize campaigns. And it covers the entire eastern United States. And then we have, now the pandemic's had us kind of locked down for a bit, but we generally have 2 gatherings every year. One of them's always up in southern Indiana, the same place. And the other one is in a different location in the eastern United States every spring over Memorial Day weekend. And we try to focus on some issue, go there to try to assist some local group that has an issue going on that they're trying to deal with. We also do things like when we're having those, we have a lot of professors and things are in this, so we can have guided field trips with a professor of ornithology. And there is nothing like going out there in the woods with somebody who can recognize every bird by their songs and tell you all this. We've got another guy who has just finished his PhD in herpetology. He makes his living now catching rattlesnakes to move them out of the way of construction crews and things. And it's just interesting being out in the woods with people who know what they're looking at and know what they're doing. Now, in terms of the Between the Rivers group, Concept Zero, the Between the Rivers group, we take care of the over 250 cemeteries that are in Land Between the Lakes now. They bulldozed and burned all of our homes and all of our churches. They tried everything they could to remove any evidence that anybody had ever lived there. They missed one church. It was 2 miles from the nearest road. The road that it accessed it is under the lake now, and we've completely restored that, and we maintain it. We're working on the very last farmstead that was left in there. TVA and the Forest Service had used it for storage, but it's got the house, the barn, outbuildings, chicken house, cistern, everything's still intact. And we've been working with the Kentucky Heritage Preservation Council to get that restored and get it maintained. And we work with their heritage program with the Forest Service quite a bit. And like I said, we also do guided trips over there for people. We're working on trying to get heritage trails going to where the different communities were. Have enough to keep us busy anyway.
All right. Gerry, tell us a little bit about your work, sir.
Yeah, my work is like I'm an everyman, or I'm actually trying to, like, I'm in the process of divesting and being more lean. So, like, over the past maybe decade, I've been in Kentucky. I've done so many different projects and stuff. And so Explore Kentucky, was born out of being in college, being a Black man, and enduring racism, or, where everyone went to school, and wanted to provide like a positive example, and then also address some of these like issues that we have that exist in our state. And so it became like this like mission. And so, like, I've done everything from, I led the development of the Beaver Creek Blueway Trail in Glasgow, which is a water trail. You can Google it, Beaver Creek Blueway Trail. And I've done stuff like, summer camps for kids, a festival in the River Gorge, Outdoor Recreation Festival, guided hikes with Kentucky Natural Land Trust. So I've done anything that's, around like community creative placemaking, outdoor recreation, and environmental education I've done. And that's kind of my goal going forward with Explore Kentucky, especially because I have a job now for like a national nonprofit, is to kind of keep it going and hand some of the things off. I think that our mission, has evolved to be like a social enterprise that works on a few key strategic projects. And so, like, one of my things I'm trying to do is create a statewide outdoor recreation passport, so to encourage people to go to different outdoor spaces and kind of gamify it and have fun. The other thing that I want is help diversify the staff of like outdoor oriented like work or businesses in the state, and also the consumer base. And I think that it's by having these like real conversations like this, like I'm hoping that people see it and they start thinking about how they can be more inclusive and welcoming to others. And then I think like another big piece is getting like making sure that environmental protection is like enshrined in like every Kentuckian's like mind. It's frustrating because people see it as like they'll be like, yeah, them Kentucky Heartwood people or them Sierra Club people, you know, and it's like no, like these people are trying to like help, because like like this is our resources are not like infinite, right? They're finite. This planet is finite. And so it is, we got to think about us and future generations as well. And so that's just important to me. And I think like how we articulate environmental protection to people is really crucial. That's like kind of like the next phase of like my like work is like, we know like what has been happening or how it's been, and I'm kind of going on a tangent, but like I feel like that environmental protection per se and advocacy can be pretentious because of the language that folks use. And so like, how can we make it more accessible to people? That's really crucial to me because it's really important.
All right, so I think we've hit all the questions I've got. So I just wonder about the two of you. Is there anything else, like Gerry? Is there something you want to know from David, or David? Is there something you want to know from Gerry? Like what? I've been taking notes and get to ask what I want. Like, is there anything that either of y'all brought up that you'd like to speak to?
I think that David, I'm curious. I've been to this. I might have been to that church. Is there only one church in LBL?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because for the Kentucky Rural Urban Exchange, we went to that church in 2016 or so when we had our Rural Urban Exchange in Paducah, and we did a program there and stuff. So I think yeah, I've been to that church, and it's a really special place.
It really is. It was falling in, being in really bad shape when we started working on it, but we've got it up in pretty good shape now.
Yeah. You
need to get back down here and we'll go paddling.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually just down there this past weekend visiting. I was at Murray State doing a conference. It was called Segregation and Recreation. Right. And it was just a bunch of scholars about Black recreation during the Jim Crow era. And so we talked a lot about, I've been working on the Cherokee Park project. So I spent some time down there, and then we were, you know Miss Betty from Hotel Metropolitan?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was at Hotel Metro on Saturday as well. So yeah, but yeah, I love to paddle for sure. I'm bring my sea kayak down there and let's get to it.
All right. One thing I was thinking about that for anybody who is thinking about going out in the outdoors, trying to get outside, is, like I said before, do a little bit of research, but be prepared. Of course, that's the Boy Scout motto, right? But I was just thinking about last year, I took a group of students out and was going to teach them how to use a map and compass, some basic navigation. Told them we're not going to use a trail. I'm going to teach you how to get to a place picked out on a map and then find your way back. And I met them all, and about half of them wearing flip-flops and short pants. So just don't do that. Your enjoyment will be much better if you're dressed properly and prepared.
Good advice. Good advice.
Nice. Well, I really would like to thank both of y'all. I mean, I feel like there's been some really enlightening points here that I'm happy our audience got a chance to hear, even if we were virtual here. It's 70 degrees outside, and I feel like this is a talk we should all be having outside now, right, since spring seems to finally be here. But it's got me thinking. You've both mentioned a whole bunch of great resources that it would be helpful to get in people's hands. So when we conclude, I'm going to try and reach out to both of y'all to see if I can get a list of some of these organizations, some of these resources that you recommend to people coming in. And we do have a One Book Read Facebook page and website. So I'll try and get all that information together so we can put that in the hands of people to get more people involved and a little bit more informed about this. So if I hit you up with an email, that's what that is. But again, thank you all both for your expertise and your knowledge today. And if you don't have any further questions, thank you all for coming. We have some other One Book events coming up in the month of April, so please tune in for those. We'll be spreading the word. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank y'all.